right. Show Me After School Day Prep webinar, and I'm really excited to have Colleen and Deborah on here. And so I'm Mark Calsert. I'm the Assistant Director of Policy and Partnerships here at the Missouri After School Network. And I've got Colleen Abbott on here, and Colleen is, well, let her introduce herself, and then Deborah Taylor is on here as well. And I will let them both introduce themselves real quickly, and then we'll get started. Deborah, you go first. She's muted there. Maybe she's, there we are, there we are.
Hey. Good morning, good morning. I'm Deborah Taylor, and from St. Louis. I work for United for Children. I, excuse me, this morning, not at my best, but what I do is I work with after school programs here in the St. Louis area. And I've served on MASN's Public Policy and Awareness Committee for a few years now, as well as a after school leadership team.
Awesome. We're grateful for Deborah and her work. So thank you, Deborah. Colleen?
Yeah, I'm Colleen Abbott. I'm the chair of our MASN Public Policy and Awareness Committee, and I'm also director of after school services at Eldon R1. We're a 21st century grantee, and we're just really excited to have you. And I know Deborah's not feeling the best today, and so I may take on some of her parts just so she can save her voice for program time later on. And so thank you, Deborah, for being on. I apologize for I know you're not feeling well, so hopefully you'll get to feeling better. But if you have anything, just chime in, and that's me. So basically, we're gonna just go forward. So our real goals for today are really three things we want you to take away. We want to make sure that logistically, if you're planning on being at the Capitol, you know what you need to prepare for, answer any questions that you might have, and then just making sure that number two, you know what will happen that day. And so really making sure that we have everything prepared for you ahead of time. And then finally, if you're not able to join us that day, like what else can you do to support and kind of draw attention to those, even if you're not able to attend? If at any time you have a question or a comment, you can use the chat box. You can also raise your hand if you want to interject right at that time. And Mark's going to help me. We'll keep monitoring that. I said, of course, this is the day when my crazy little Surface Pro that I typically use is running updates, and it's only at 30%. It's been running for about, I don't know, 45 minutes. And so I did start it last night, and it still isn't done. So we will move forward. So I apologize because I'm on my phone and on my computer that has nothing. So nothing but a screen. But we're going to really start with, like, why is it, why are we doing this? Why are we taking the time to be here? And I think that's something we always have to make sure that we're kind of focusing on, and really thinking about, this, like Mark said, this is our second official after school day, Show Me After School Day, and really trying to make this an annual event at the Capitol. Before this time, after school's had a present, things like that day, STEM day, but we haven't had our own specific day. And so we're going to just focus a little bit, spend a little bit of time on why is it that we're doing what we're doing. And so to begin with, I'm going to have Mark kind of share the MASN vision and goals, and then we're going to kind of look at just remembering why we're doing this, why we're going to spend time to do it. So go ahead, Mark.
Awesome. And again, we're having some exciting times, so we can't wait to share all these details with you as we get ready for this day. But our vision here with the Missouri After School Network is that all Missouri children will have access to high quality and sustainable after school programs. I mean, I'm just reading that on the screen, but you see that. And one of the interesting things that that is starting to happen, and we had a visit. Just a quick side note, Colleen and Terry and I had a visit a week and a half ago with some legislators. We went down and visited with the minority leader as well as a couple of others. And one of the particular House members talked specifically about that her goal would be that all children would be able to have this access, that it wouldn't just be for just a few. So to me, that was really great for us to hear. And we're hearing that now on both sides of the aisle. Our goals are to support partnerships. We do this through partnerships, policy, and quality programming. So support partnerships, and those partnerships come in a variety of ways through our, with the folks that help serve on our leadership team, but also our partnerships with legislators and policymakers, both at the grassroots level, both in your local level, in your local context, all the way through where we build those, even when we talk about doing this advocacy work and this awareness work and this education work, even to the federal level. We promote that policy by making them aware of the needs that we have and the goals that we have for this vision, which is to make sure that we have access, that all students have access to quality programming. And then we ensure that quality, and here at MASN, we do that through all the different initiatives, specifically as 21st century, for the most part, for 21st century and SAC programs, but even non-grantee programs are doing that as well, and the ways in which we provide the support for that, so that we're providing, educational or academic enrichment opportunities, and helping bridge the school day, all those different things that we're doing, providing opportunities for students to get access to career awareness and post-secondary access opportunities. And so the various initiatives that we do, and resourcing.
But we really want to remind ourselves of the why. And really, even if these aren't your kiddos, you have a lot of students that you see these same things, right? And that's what we just have to keep in mind. For those of you guys who are just on audio, we have lots of pictures of our students showing up where they're eating snacks, where they're doing STEM activities, they're making pizzas, they're doing all kinds of different things, and homework help. That's the reminder that this is really, why we have this day, because we know the impact that after school has on our students that are able, and we also know that there is such a great need. Mark, what's your stat that you say on how many students are impacted and what's our need still in Missouri?
So we know that we've been able to map over 1,100 programs around the state. There's 135,000 kiddos that we believe are involved in after-school programs around the state. But we know that for every student in an urban area that's in a program, there are 2 waiting to get into a quality program. And in rural areas, for every kiddo that's in a program, there are 3 that would get into a program if it's available to them. So we know that there's opportunity to probably have over 250,000 more students involved in after-school programs if those programs are available.
Yeah, and that is really our why. It's the kiddos, it's the families, it's the community impact that we have. And so we just wanted to spend a minute on that, because that's really what we want to share when we're there that day. We want to highlight our students, we want to highlight our programs, we want to highlight the incredible impact we're having to our communities. And so what are we going to do while we're there? One thing that I want to make sure that everyone is aware of is we actually we changed the name from After School Advocacy Day to Show Me After School, because we want to make 100% sure that we're aware of the difference between lobbying and educational advocacy. Lobbying is when we're asking for specific legislation to move forward, when we're asking for line item budgeting, when we're asking for specific things that they're going to be voting on, and we're not doing that. What we're going to be doing is educational advocacy, and we're going to be focusing on making sure that people are aware of after school programs, and for you guys to really be able to share your stories of what it is that we're doing. And so kind of what are our goals? Okay, come on now. Okay. There's Deborah with Representative Roberts, I believe it is, and she met him on one of our trips to the Capitol. And that's just a great example of what we want to do. Is we want to make sure that we're demonstrating what it is that we have for after school programming. So some of the things we're going to do that's a little bit different this time is we've got the entire rotunda, and we want kids there, we want programs there, we want display boards there, so that they can really see, anyone that's visiting the Capitol that day can really see that after school impacts the entire state, and that it's really vary depending on the community in which it serves. We do want you to meet with your legislators. That's our probably #1 goal, is that you have a face-to-face with them, having some conversations with them about what it is you're doing. We definitely want to talk about your after-school program and share information about after school locally, and then also on a state or national level. And then finally, our real goal is to eventually get those legislators to programs. And so that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we are we're able to have that ask in the end. And so if there's something that you're going to be asking your legislators, it's going to be, will you come and see us? And that may be later this school year, or that may be something for the summer, or it may be something for next school year, but really getting them out to let you guys really shine. And we know that can be intimidating, but there was a lot of tools that we have that our committees worked on to help move that forward. And then finally, like, you can't have an after school event without having some fun. And we really do want to have a good time, and that we want everyone to walk away from this just feeling really positive about the impact that we're having.
We have a question real quick, Colleen, before we move forward. There's a question about, do we need to bring tables? Let me just say this real quick. All those details are taken care of. I just talked to Tammy Cleathermos on the House side this morning, just double checking our stuff on the third floor of the Rotunda. We have tables and chairs that will be available to us on both the House and the Senate side of the Rotunda. So you don't have to bring anything except whatever you want to display, but just make sure you let us know that you're going to do that, because we want to make sure we reserve your booth space for your exhibit. So we will have plenty of tables. If you have a table you want to bring along, that's fine, additional, but we will have tables for you. I think we've got 30 tables maybe. I know we've got 10 on the House side and maybe 20 on the Senate side, but I will double check that, but I think we're going to be fine. But as we get a little closer, if we do need you to bring something else, we'll let you know.
Yeah. And we're going to continue on with more of those logistics, but that's exactly the kind of thing we want to make sure that everybody just has in mind. And so if there's anything like that we're not covering by the time we get done, we want to make sure that we get those questions answered. And so our goal is, I put that little phrase up there. My aunt was a high school basketball coach, and she continues to tells me this about every time that we talk to one another, and about just making sure that we're going to have everything as prepared as we possibly can. So one of the things we want you to do is to make sure that you're making those appointments for your visits. And here in a minute, we're going to kind of tell you, if you don't know how to find who your representatives are, we're going to share that as well. And we'll go through the agenda for the day to make sure that our appointments are correct. And I'm now thinking, I'm hoping I had the right time on there. So Mark, I might have to change something on this slide when we get to it. But when we go to, we want to make those appointments. And so we'll talk about the timing of that, but basically you're going to call or email the legislative aide and the representative, and they will figure out a time for that visit. So that's one thing we want to have done before that day. That would be something great to do this week, or definitely by early next week, so that you can have some time set aside with your legislator, if at all possible. The next thing we want to do is we want to have you bring a program like information sheet or program newsletter, some piece of paper that you can leave behind that would demonstrate some of the things that your program does. And then also maybe something that we also would like it to have contact information on there so that they can get a hold of you in the future. This is going to be something, the key on this is going to be photos. Like if they can see what's happening, that can be really impactful to help share that story. And if something happens and your representative or your senator has to stay on the floor, or they get pulled away to a committee, or there's some vote or something that's happening that day that we can't plan for right now, at least you'll have something that you can follow up on and potentially have a conversation with them at a later point. But we definitely want to have that. If you need help with any of these things, please let myself or Mark or Deborah know, and we can help you with that. We actually have a way to help get those program information sheets and have a template that we can also share. We also want to gather any stories or really, things that are going to make a difference, or quotes from parents or students that you want to share with your legislators. We're going to bring some students, and some of those students have a story to tell about their time. We have a youth ambassador she's the oldest of 5 kids. And it's one of those things that she is, wants to be there to tell that story about the things how the big difference it makes, that our program makes for her single dad. And so if there's quotes from there, I also had a parent that was talking about how important the homework help is. And she would not be able to really assist her daughter with what's going on because she doesn't know how to teach it exactly. And so she loves our program simply because her daughter comes home with her homework done, and then they get to have family time. And those are some things that, we'll also be focusing on, how it really helps working families in our community, because that's a big part of what our before and after school both do. So think about, what are those stories and how are we really impacting And what are some quotes potentially from parents or from students that, you really want to share with those legislators so that you have some key things. You may also think about like what specifically does your program offer that maybe is unique, or is something that, makes a big difference. It could be some sort of STEM programming, and you want to like specifically tell them what it is they're doing and what they're learning, how they're using academics. Or maybe it's something like, a lot of students don't know how to prepare nutritious meals. And so your student or your program is helping to teach those students some of those kind of skills where they can take care of themselves. If you're going to talk about social and emotional learning, like you may have some specific things that those students are learning. I talk about a game of Uno doesn't seem like a really, just a real monumental kind of thing, but the lessons that those students learn about sharing and taking turns and becoming, even if you don't win, you don't act like a loser, and so there's a lot of different stories or different ways that we can do that. I'm sorry, my mouth is a little out of control with this. Okay. So that's kind of just some things to think about to get ready. If you don't know your legislator, you can find it. Go to house.mo.gov and then find your representative. You do need to put in your full address or it will not work with your city and zip code. And then on the Senate page, senate.mo.gov, the legislator lookup is just right here at the top in the banner at the top. And so that will give you that information. Once you go to their page, that'll show their office number, and it'll also show their a number that you can call or an email that you can send it to. So that's how you find your legislator if you don't know who it is you need to make those visits with, okay? So the things that we want to do, this is our Facebook page when we think about the day of. So a few more things to do ahead of time. We would love to see hundreds of people going and that this is shared out so that people know. So on our MASN Facebook page, Missouri After School Network Facebook page, this is an event on February 20th. So please make sure to go on there. You can also find on that page, you're going to see the link. It's on that Facebook page and it's in the pipeline. And then Terry also actually shared that link just a minute ago in the chat. And that was what Mark was alluding to. We want to make sure that we have tables for everyone. We want to make sure that we have lunch for everyone that's coming. And then we also want to help. We want to make sure we know how many people are coming. And so please register at that link and do that as soon as you can, kind of thing. And again, it's on the Facebook page and in the pipeline. And then kind of what is the dress for that day? So it's either going to be business dress or so like suit or tie, those kind of things, or it's going to be business casual. And so you may be with students and like our students are all going to wear a LEAP t-shirt that they have. The students they're probably just going to be, our kids are probably going to be in t-shirts and jeans. That's perfectly fine. I'll show some well, you can see on the picture there on the screen, those students were all wearing their t-shirt and they were wearing black pants. Some were wearing shorts, some were wearing jeans, those kind of things. And then, for adult wise, they may be wearing khakis and a polo shirt. MASN may wear their polo shirts. I don't know, but it's one of those things that kind of at the Capitol, you're either in like business dress or you're in something, but adult wise, we probably need to be in khakis with a program shirt or need to be in a tie and most likely suit. Not necessarily a full suit, but those are the things that are there. Okay. That was clear as mud. Sorry about that. But and then shoes wise, you want them to be, nice but comfortable because there is going to be some walking. There's it's hard right now with all the construction. There's going to be a little bit of walking. There's going to be some stairs. So you just want to make sure that you're wearing something that you can walk in. Okay. This is the parking. And so this is like, if you're looking at the Capitol and this is the south, the river is over here and 54, 63, 54 is here, 63 is up on the other side of the river, okay? So all of this is fenced off. You cannot park there and you have to, if you come in, you have to walk around. Now there were some times that we could get, this says the garage, handicap accessible entrance, and a handicap bus drop off. So there are some days it seems like that they'll let you in the garage, and then other days that you cannot get in at the garage. And so the best thing to do would be to load and unload the bus over on the let's see, the west side. And then there is parking that's down, this is a hill here. So you go down and there's parking in this area. There's also up, if you go up, let's see, Capitol Street, comes up and you go up here to the other side of the governor's mansion, and right along the river, there's also bus parking there. Okay. If you go on up Capitol Street to Madison, at Madison and Capitol, that corner is a parking garage. It does fill up rather quickly this time of the year. But if you're driving, excuse me, a car, that would be a place where you can park. And then again, there is also always overflow parking to the west. You just have to make sure you've got on some walking shoes to come back up the hill. And so those are some things that you can still pull around. Traffic will go that way. You'll go down Broadway and around, but all of this, the south side of the Capitol, is all closed. You do come into the public safety here, so you walk around, walk up this way, come back underneath, and go in these doors is typically the way to get into the entrance, and there will be a metal detector there. Okay. So any questions about how to get into the Capitol or where we're headed there? Okay.
Nice job. You covered it well, Colleen.
Okay. Well, yeah, I told a funny story about summer school and how I was not this detailed and we had some issues. So we're going to try to be as detailed as possible. So Mark's going to kind of talk about what's going to go on then once you get to the Capitol, where things are going to be taking place.
So when you get to the Capitol and you come through security, come up to the 3rd floor in the rotunda area is going to be our meeting space. So we have the entire 3rd floor this year secure, so both the Senate and the House side. So we'll be up there. That's where we'll do registration. That's where you'll pick up information if you to share with your legislators if you any of the information from the network. And so that's where we'll kick off from. We will also then have time where you'll be able to go into either the House or the Senate. We will be introduced as far as the network will be, or the day will be introduced on both sides. And there are entry points, both the 3rd and the 4th floor, I think, both in the House and the Senate. And then as Colleen has said, there'll be a lot of walking, and if you can know ahead of time where those offices are, we'll help you know that. If we're helping specifically set those appointments, we will also get you those. We'll have those ahead of time for you, but just knowing where they are. So you're going to go from the 1st to the 4th floor on your visits. So there'll be a lot of moving around to get to those offices. Real quick note, Cindy just made a note about parking in Jeff City, and that is that there are meters, but they're typically only for 2 hours, and they do ticket frequently. And so make sure that if you do happen to feed a meter, you better be watching your stop, better watch your watch on that. So, we've said that we're going to start registration at 8:30, but we know that folks are driving from different locations. So we'll have that 9 o'clock time there. We'll probably wait a little bit later, but give a chance for as many folks to get there as possible before we do but we will be doing our kickoff and welcome after 9 a.m. and just kind of getting all of our details lined up during that 9 to 10 period. Then we will be introduced on the House and Senate floors. We don't have all the exact details yet, but we will have those for you prior to then. You probably be expecting, especially those of you who are registering to come. And again, hit that link that Terry has put in the chat box. If you have not registered to be there, please let us know. That helps us a ton, because then we will be sending out specific information to those who have registered. So you'll get specific emails, not just a mass email to our listserv. We want to make sure we're talking directly to those who are participating as well about these details. Then you'll have an opportunity to meet with your legislators between 10:30 and 1. We know some may need to do that a little later, and that's okay. You can do that in small groups, or you can do individual appointments. We will have lunch beginning at noon, and that's kind of a grab and go if you need to. We also know that each program is going to kind of have to get their kiddos back at a certain time. So we wanted to give you enough margin to get those things accomplished. And you can set your appointments. If you want to get there earlier and set your appointment at 8 a.m., you can. But just know that You can set those if you're setting them yourself, but let us know what your schedule looks like, and we'll work real diligently to try to make that happen. And again, as Colleen has said, a lot of that depends on the particular member of the House member, the senator, depending on their calendar as well. But you still want to go by and meet their legislative aide and drop off material if you're not able to meet directly with your legislator.
Yeah, and so like Mark said, just to make sure that if you are going to go, let's say you have an appointment at 8 o'clock and that's when they can be there and you can be there, let us know, because we will also have some additional after school information that we want to send with you. And so even if it's something that maybe we won't have the whole table set up, but we could meet you at 8 o'clock to get you that, just let us know those things so that we can make sure you have everything that you need. And so we're going to talk just a little bit about kind of what are some things to talk to your legislator about. And like I said, we will have some talking points for the day of as a backup of just some things that if you're like, oh, I don't know what to say, that is fine. Like we'll have some things like that. We'll have a piece that is like, this is your script. And then these are things to leave for your legislator. And so some things just to think about now, our after school message is that after school works to keep kids safe, helps working families, and inspires learning outside of the classroom. And so those are three, tested, vetted messages that the Alliance says works really well with legislators, especially in the state of Missouri. Those are some things that are really important in our workforce development atmosphere, talking about how you're helping those working families. That's really positive. And then I think, like Mark said, inspiring learning. And if you're doing anything talking about careers and just working toward getting students ready, those are definitely things we want to share. I think I said this earlier, but again, just talking about specific and unique features of your program in your after school community. And I think that is something that's really key, is making sure that you're specifically telling those stories, because that really makes a difference. And just really a compelling story about the positive impact of after school is really something that they want to hear. And that's what's really memorable. Sometimes people are like, well, I don't really know very many statistics about my program, or I don't know very many statistics about after school. Research really shows, and if anybody was at MASN, if we were at Mozak, we heard a lot about stories, right? And how the story really, that's the way that we really remember. And that's what really makes us, really connects what it is that we're talking about is through that story. And so just really thinking about your kiddos and thinking about the families and thinking about the school and the community, and what are some things that you're doing that can just really highlight those positive things, those positive pieces of after school. And then finally, if you feel comfortable with it, you have something, invite your legislator to your program for them to experience it themselves. I don't have the date in front of me. The 23rd, that week of the 23rd, I believe it is. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong.
It is, yeah.
Okay, that's going to be their legislative break. And so they'll be back in their communities most of the time during that week. And then just to keep in mind that as we move into April and definitely in May, they're extremely busy trying to finish up things with session. And so if it's going to be after like mid-May is when they typically end, then you may not be able to invite them to come see your program, the end of April to the middle of May, but maybe it is you have summer programming, or maybe it's something to kick it off when school starts back. But just really be thinking about when could they come, when could they see your program and really experience it for themselves, because we know when we see something face-to-face, it just really makes a difference for us. Some things to not do, like we just want to not highlight these, but just make sure if they ask you a question and you don't know, don't guess, just tell them that you'll get back to them, and then send that to myself or to Mark, and we'll help you get those questions answered. Sometimes they have things that maybe are not really that related, but they feel like it's related. Perfectly fine. Just make sure to tell them, hey, it's okay. I said, well, I'm not really sure on that. Let me get back to you. But just don't guess and give the wrong information. Don't talk about a million issues that you're concerned about. Remember that today's purpose is about after school. And so we're not going to talk about necessarily like the funding formula or, umpteen other things that may, somewhat relate, but not really relate. Like today's visit is about the visit for that purpose that day is talking about after school. Don't hijack the conversation from the group. So if you're with a group of people, because there may be more professionals that are all meeting at the same time, all for after school, But just making sure that you're kind of talking to each other and that you're really working together to tell that story. And it's not a like one upper kind of thing when you're there as a group. And then try to avoid getting political. Just remember that it's not positive to make comments on one side or the other. After school is a bipartisan issue about working families and about helping kids. And it's not helpful to get into any kind of political debate or, you know, this is not the time to share your likes or dislikes of the president or other people federally. So just stay on point with the message and just focus on your kids, you know, is the real key for talking with those legislators.
Let me add real quick.
Go ahead.
I want to say this real quick. Colleen does a really nice job when we're talking to legislators on both sides of the aisle of saying this, using this particular point, and it's a great point. After school is an investment in the community. And if we talk about that specifically as we're moving toward, hopefully, our goal is to get more funding. We have federal funds, but we're hopeful down the road that we will be able to have other funding coming from the state. And when we talk about that, we're just talking about how can we invest more to help working families, provide safe spaces for kids. So I love that investment side because that is bipartisan language. So just, I just want to make sure I do that, that I let you know that I appreciate it when Colleen says that, because that's a big talking point to me, is to say investment in the community.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. And yeah, that is definitely something that I talk about because, you know, most superintendents don't have, you know, $250,000 or whatever it may be. That is the local investment that we get, but that they would just decide to, oh yeah, whoops, sorry. Yeah. My phone was going to die because this, again, my lovely computer. Okay, we're back at it. So it is one of those things that we really focus on and talk about how it's a way for a school to start something that then now the, you know, the community also owns it, and they would be willing then to find them because they see the value in the after school. And so I think that's something that's really key. It's also something that we think about in whether you're really urban or you're really rural or wherever your program may be, you know, what opportunities are your students getting that they otherwise wouldn't get? And in a more rural area, we really talk about how, and this may be true urban wise as well, but in a lot of the rural areas, we don't have a YMCA. We don't have a Boys and Girls Club. We don't have some of the things that they may see in other places or maybe accessible other places. And so that's a conversation point that we talk about, is that we provide some of those resources that the community can't provide. And so again, that investment of just focusing on those kids. And so those are great things to talk about with your legislator. When you finish your visit, we also do want to do a follow-up. And so we want to try to do that, you know, in the 24 or 48 hours later. It could be a quick email saying, you know, thank you for your time, or if you missed them, you know, I hope to see you again sometime in the future. If you did miss them, and then, you know, you might point out or highlight some of the things that you say. This is a really good time to incorporate your students. And is this something that, you know, your students can send thank you cards, or your students can do a message and tag them, you know, whatever it is that that you might do to really highlight your students one more time. And even if your students weren't there, if it was staff that came, this would be a great opportunity to kind of incorporate the kids to engage them in the things that were going on. Make sure to answer any of the questions that you left open-ended. So if they had a question that you didn't know, then you contact one of us, and then we're able to answer that for you. And then you can say, hey, I wasn't aware of whatever, you know, I didn't know exactly the free and reduced rate that you have to be a 21st century, or I didn't know how much money 21st century programs have in the state, whatever it may be. I don't know what they're going to ask you, but if there's something you didn't know, answer that question for them, and then continue to send reminders and follow up with the event details that are closer to time. If you know a date for them, and that's talking about if they're going to come to your program, send them that date and just send them a little, you know, save the date for something for the future, and then follow up with those things as well. One of the things to think about is sometimes you think, oh, well, I don't know if they're reading these emails or not. We were in the Capitol a few days ago, and we saw Representative Tommy Pearson, who is a representative from the St. Louis area. And I knew him from an event we did at Jennings High School. And so I stopped him and I said, you know, hi, Representative, I don't know if you remember me or not, but we watched Taekwondo when we were at a visit in Jennings. And we introduced ourselves. myself and Mark and Terry, and he's like, Terry, now I know Terry, you send me those emails, and he reads the pipeline like he knew her from those emails. So I don't, don't be too quick to say, oh, well, that doesn't really matter. They do get a lot of emails, but especially they want to hear from their constituents. And when you have something to say, you include a photo of students. That's a great way to just be memorable and to remind them of what it was you were talking about. Okay.
Also, when sending them an email, this is a great point too, Colleen. I've been hearing several of the legislative aides have been saying to me, hey, send it to me too. So include, even though they read, the legislative aide is the one that's filtering the House member or the Senate's emails. If you send one directly to the legislative aide, that's going to get read. And you can also have some real specific points to reinforce that you want to make sure you get to that legislator.
That's a great point, Mark. Great point. Okay. So what can you do if you're not attending? Some of the things that you can do is just to help, and this is whether you're attending, if you're going to be there, or if you're not going to be there. We would love to get a social media buzz, and we're going to have a little bit more on social media in just a minute. But additional videos or additional photos, even if you're posting things that are happening at your program today, but you talk to your students about it, or maybe you have your students do, maybe they're writing a letter to their representative, or they're inviting them somewhere. Or you're talking about, maybe they're doing a social emotional lesson and you're taking pictures of it and you're going to tag, this is why we need, this is why people are advocating for after school at the Capitol today. This is what we do, this is after school, those kind of things. We also are going to have some room for additional display boards. And so if that's something that you could send a display board, or we could get a display board to Columbia or to Jeff City, that we could get something there. We would love to have some additional pictures and photos of programs and things that are happening in the program. So if that's something that you would like to do, let us know that. Something else that you can do is write a letter to the editor prior to the event. It may be something that you or a parent, just to draw attention to the fact that this is happening at the Capitol on that day, and then it's something that that you are interested in, that you're also advocating for. I took a couple of these snapshots from the after school page, and we had Jasmine from down in Boys and Girls Club of the Branson area. She was one of our Missouri youth ambassadors last year, and so she was there. We had a few pictures of her there advocating, and then the bigger post that showed the group on the steps, we'll try to take another video or take another picture there, and then we had a couple from Link, and then a few more with their representatives. And so that's definitely also something that we want you to do, is if you meet with your legislator, we want to make sure that you're take pictures and post them. Ask your legislator what their tag is when you visit, or ask them what what it is on social media. Their legislative assistant will also know that. Also using hashtag MoLeg for Missouri legislature, that comes up then on lots of different things. So when you do that hashtag, that's something that if you, for example, I follow Senator Caleb Rowden on Twitter. And so he might use that when something's going on, there's a big issue in the legislature that day that they're working on, that hashtag is there. Well, then anytime we search for it, then that will come up on their Twitter feed. We're also going to be using the hashtag Show-Me Afterschool and hashtag This Is Mo After School. And so those are things that you can let them know. If you have staff members, please let them know those are also tags that we want to use, so we can find your tweets or your Facebook post. Also something else that whether you're there at the event or whether you're at home, it's great if you retweet things. And so just keep kind of watching your feeds that day and try to just continue to create that buzz. And that's a great thing to repost it or retweet it. And then you can also tag them on Twitter. It's Mo_Afterschool, or on Facebook at MASN #1. And then again, share with your colleagues who aren't attending so they can still participate by doing those kind of things. And I have a messed up slide there. Yes, Colleen will discuss it. That's what I'm doing right now. So make that note.
And you're doing a great job.
So sorry. I'm still learning how to use the 365 version of Microsoft on some of these things, so I must have made a mistake there. But those are some social media pieces. Some tweets that we'll also share out again are, so everybody has these. We're going to be using, again, the hashtag Show-Me Afterschool. And then this would be some things you could say. So happy to be at the Capitol. You put in that tag and for that picture. And then also the investing in kids after school is an investment in their safety, social emotional well-being, and education enrichment. Thank you or thanks to that member. And again, when we get those in there, that just helps us to build where it's at. And so those are some things just to think about and to look at. And then we'll have some other things, some other pieces like kind of like that. And you can also highlight other things from your program specifically. These are just some, kind of some ideas so that you have something to think about.
And then any pictures on social media are a big deal. I go back to when we were in DC last June for After School for All Challenge, and we had our morning coffee with Senator Blunt, and it was the day that the Blues were playing for the Stanley Cup, Game 7. And I had my rally towel with me, and I got a picture with the senator with my Blues towel. And it actually, they tweeted that out, and it actually made St. Louis television that evening. And we were able to kind of get some play on After School, but also for the Blues and for the senator and all that kind of stuff. So again, you never know what's going to happen when you get that pick and you get permission to use it on social media.
Yeah.
Hey, Colleen, I want to jump in real quick before we do questions, comments. I want to say one thing. Earlier, we were talking about legislative or legislature lookups. One of the things we want you to do, we obviously want you, as you're representing your program, to talk to those legislators who serve the districts where your programs are located. But it also is helpful if you visit with your personal legislator. So you may live in a different district, but you work in a district, but it's still, you're just getting a chance to talk to more folks. Also, one of the things I learned, I always thought that I had one particular House member. When I went last year, I found out that my district was wide enough. We had 3 House members that represented our school district. So just make sure when you put that zip code in, you look up and see it should show all of them, but it may not. So you just want to double check and make sure which of who your legislators are that represent your districts.
Yeah, and great point, Mark, because I said it's something that we have bus routes that go into three different districts, and then I also have my own. And so we want to make sure that you are, we're spreading that message. The other thing is if there's other people that you know, for example, one of my college friends, his dad is now a legislator. And so I'm going to make a point to go and talk to him about After School, simply because we have that connection that was an outside connection. And so talking about the programs that are in his area. So if you have anything like that and you feel comfortable doing that, think about spreading that message with whatever the sphere is, because that's the whole thing, is that, I know the people that I know, Mark knows the people he knows, but collectively we can really impact a lot of people, and we want to make sure that we're doing that. So
it would be fun. I was going to say this too, Colleen. It would be fun to see how many actual legislators we get to visit with or get some time with in their offices during this day. I like for us to be able to maybe chart that and have an idea of how many folks we actually get a chance to visit with that day, and see what percentage of House members and Senate members and senators that we get to see. That would be really fun too. So we'll try to get those data. So when you visit with someone, and we'll talk about that on that day, when you visit with someone, you let us know. And I will let you have my cell phone at some point. If you want my cell phone, you email me and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. And I said, we just wanted to make sure that you have some contact information, so that if you're worried about, I'm going to be on a bus with some students and I'm worried about how we get in or anything like that, just make sure. I said, I've got people, I plan to be at the Capitol early that day as well. And so we'll be around, and I'm pretty familiar with Jeff City and feel really comfortable down in that area. So, and I've driven a bus down there. So if you need help with any of those things, that's my cell number. I will have it on me, and be ready to assist and to help in that direction. And so if that's something that you're worried about, just something that may happen, or you're going to get lost when you get there, if there's any concern, like, contact us now, and so we can put as many of those things to rest as we need to. And then if there is anything else that comes up the day of, then please don't hesitate to call, because that's what we want this to be a successful day. We want you all to feel really positive, and we just want to leave the Capitol with a lot more information in their hands, and really just presenting our story. So I'm going to stop talking, and if there's questions, please, you can unmute yourself and ask them, or you can use the chat box.
We've had some great questions too. So hopefully we've answered those, but we'll go through those. But if you, and we'll make sure we address them to you individually if we need to. But I think we're pretty good right now in terms of the chat box. The only other thing that was asked was, is there a parking app? Like, is there an available? I don't think there is. I just think it's just a map that's available that shows parking around the Capitol complex is all that I've been able to find. Is that right, Colleen?
True.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I'm unaware, and I don't, Cindy, if you have any other information, put that in the chat box for us. But that is something that, yeah, I'm not sure on that one, if there's an app. I don't feel like Jeff City has gone that direction very much. Jenny, did you get your question asked about the specific time to make those appointments with that agenda?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And Cindy said she's not aware of any app. It would be nice, but I know like Columbia has gone to lots of apps, but I haven't seen that with Jeff City as much. So Mark, I'm going to stop sharing and we can go back to wonderful faces. And if there's anything, other questions or.
And we have folks, again, we have folks from all over the state on this call, which is so exciting to us. And just grateful that we're getting this chance and to have students coming. I know we've got, I think, at least 6 programs I know of for sure, but I know that's going to grow. That will have students in the Capitol that day, which will be awesome. Hopefully we'll get a few more. But as Colleen has said, if you send a board and you're not able to be there or bring students, but we can put that on a table, we will have, exhibits of your storyboards, and glad to put that out there for you. Also, I want to throw this out real quick. If you are planning, I'm going to jump real quick to March, and then if you're planning to go to NAA this year in DC and you have yet to register, or you're not sure if you're going to be able to participate in the After School for All Challenge at the Capitol, let us know though if you are going to NAA, and if there's a possibility. We're trying to also organize on top of our state day at the Capitol. We're also beginning to get our organization together for our federal visits as well in March when we're in DC for NAA. So we're glad. We want to make sure we visit with you about that. I just want to throw that out real quick, just in case. Just let us know.
Okay. I think the last thing that I wanted to make sure we mention on this call is if you haven't already, we want to, I'm going to share my screen one more time here. We want to try to get as much as we can around our I Love After School. And so in the pipeline this last, just yesterday, I guess, we had our after school network. And so we've got a big heart here. So the idea is to print this off and have students, have parents, have administrators, even if it's like, you've got pickups happening, have your parents fill that out, snap a picture of them, snap a picture of them and their kids, to tell us why do we love after school. And we really would love to see that with the I love Mo After School or Mo After School Works. Use those hashtags and put those up. Ask your staff to do it. Ask the building administrators where you have programs. And then it's also something that, if you want to bring one to your legislator and have them put it up there, if there's someone that supports after school already, those are great ways to also spread the message and something that we can do as we lead up to our after school day. I know a few programs said that this is part of how they're going to tell their story, is they're going to bring a pile of these to their legislator. If that's something you want to do, that is awesome, but it's a great way to capture quotes, to capture short little snippets of why it's so important to them, and really encourage those students to say something besides "it's fun." I love recess. Those are some of the ones we get some of the time, but really like asking them to, and that is why they love it. But it is something of we want to try to see if we can get to get some of those pieces for the programs, and that's just another way to really start the buzz about what it is we're doing this month. So I wanted to make sure to point that out. So I'll stop that share. But that was in the pipeline yesterday. If you don't have access to that, please let us know, because the pipeline is our main way to communicate with all of our professionals, and we want to make sure everyone's name is on that. If possible, I think we're going to post that also on the Facebook page, Mark, or where else was that going to be after the pipeline?
It will be on the Facebook page. I